So today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Joanna Monahan, author of Welcome to Blooms. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you. Loved the book. Very fun book. But before we really dive into the nuts and bolts of it all, can you give the readers kind of like a little elevator pitch? What are they going to find when they open up the cover of Welcome to Blooms?
Sure. So Welcome to Blooms is a lighthearted family comedy about estranged siblings, Daisy and Bud, who have to learn to work together in order to save the family flower shop.
Absolutely. And there's a little bit of romance involved too. So it's kind of on the edge of a romantic comedy, right? There's a little bit of that.
There's a teeny tiny bit. I actually really flirted with the idea of this being what I was calling a no-mance.
Yes.
Because I really wanted to focus on the relationships between the family members. But there is, because, I mean, who doesn't like a little bit of romance?
Exactly. You want a little bit. You actually need a little bit for it to. So what made you decide that this was the genre that you were going into? This kind of a cozy family relationship-y side of romance kind of story. What made you decide this was it?
Well, when I was working on my first book, Something Better, I was writing that during the pandemic. I was one of those pandemic writers, and I wanted that to be a funny, lighthearted book, and I really wasn't feeling it. You know, those first few months of 2020 were not lighthearted or funny. So I wrote a much quieter, more emotional book, which worked. But when I was starting to work on this, I thought, you know what, I really just want to have fun. I've always found comfort in books, and I wanted to write something that felt comforting to other people, that might feel like something that you would want to go back and revisit if you're having a down day and you just want to pick up something cozy.
Absolutely. I agree. Where did the idea come from? I mean, what you've got is this woman, right, who has kind of left the family business. She wants nothing to do with it. She's making it on her own. And then, bam, she finds herself smack back dab in the middle of it again. Where did the idea come from?
So it actually came from a completely different project I was working on. I was doing National Novel Writing Month in 2020. I decided to do a project, and I was writing about a wedding that took place. The whole story took place in one day, and it was going to be a story or a linked collection of short stories from different points of view at the wedding. And Daisy and Bud were the florists. Okay. And so they showed up as minor characters in a couple of chapters. And once I finished National Novel Writing Month, I put the project aside. But a few months later, I was still thinking about this brother-sister florist duo, and really just thinking, like, what's their deal? So I started writing, and I very quickly had about 30 pages, and I thought, okay, there's something there. So that's where it started. And then it took me, 6 more years and 7 drafts to get it right.
Isn't it interesting how characters will get in your head and then won't leave you alone? And it's like, okay, you must be what I'm supposed to write about, because obviously you're in my mind and you won't go away.
Exactly. Yeah. And you start to think about them as real people and have conversations with them. And you're like, I should be writing this down.
Yes. I when I tell people that I have characters live in my head, sometimes if they're not authors, they give you that look, the one that says, do we need to call the padded vehicle to come take you away?
And you get to the end of the day, sometimes when you're writing or really working on a story and you feel like you've been talking all day and it's only been in your head.
In your head. Yes. Isn't that crazy? And it's almost exhausting. Like, you want just silence, and everybody's like, yeah, but you've been silent for the last 8 hours in your office. And it's like, yeah, but I haven't been silent. I've been carrying on full conversations.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I've just written a book that has humor in it, and I found humor is fun, but it's hard. Like, did you find it to be difficult?
I found it really hard, and there were a couple of different reasons. I've been thinking about why was it so hard, because I like to be funny, and I like reading things that are funny.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that what's really tough is when you want to write humor that is relatable or is lighthearted, you have to be very careful that your characters are funny, but you're not making fun of them. You
Right.
you don't want to parody anyone. You don't want to be mean. Really trying to dial that humor into relatable situations can be really hard. I mean, there are some slapsticky moments in the book. The dog was useful for that, but
Right. Right.
really trying to hone in on what's funny between two family members that are miscommunicating. That's tricky.
It can be. And that idea of the slapsticky, you have to be careful. Too much humor turns it into something that now is just, it's just
Parody.
ridiculous. Yeah. It's just, it just doesn't, and I didn't want to write a ridiculous. You didn't want to write a ridiculous, but you wanted it to be funny. And it's easy, or at least it was for me. I completely lost Peg's voice in my novel. I got very invested in the number of words I was writing, and I'm writing. And I went back and I read it, and it was like, I hated everything I wrote because I lost her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually got rid of 40,000 words and started from 20,000 and wrote again.
Ouch. Oh, ouch.
Yeah, it was horrible, but necessary.
I found, because I did start and stop this because I was writing around other projects, and I had my first book come out in the middle, and I couldn't do both. So I had to put Blooms aside for a while. And when I picked it back up again and started writing, I felt like I was writing a different character. My voices didn't match. Yeah. And so I waylaid myself for quite a while because I was trying to make, A connect to B to connect to C. But I felt like W and Q were in there in the middle. I had to really go back.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I tend to like, given the way I would prefer to write, I like to just sit down and write it and get out the first draft. And then I go back and I start really looking at it. But with Peg, I couldn't do it because I kept losing her voice. And so I would write a chapter and stop. The next day I would read that chapter. I would massage it, make sure that her voice was still there, that it was the right amount of funny, the right amount of Peg, that I was really getting her voice. And then I would write my next chapter and I would have to stop because otherwise I would get so far out into the weeds that I couldn't fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought about mine with the middle section is really Daisy with her family. And then it's bookended by some other things. But I really thought about it. I started thinking about it as a video game, and that she had kind of different levels, that she had to make her peace with each member of the family. And each one was like, she was leveling up each time. And I really had to focus on one level at a time. And then I could go to the next one, because if I tried to jump from one to to like the third level, it didn't work. So I really did kind of work up to the big boss level.
And I had someone recently ask me, are you going to write another humor? And it was like, I hope to, but actually I need a break. I need to do something else, because I found it to be harder than writing anything else that I've written.
It is. It really is. I think it's, I'm really fascinated by stand-up comedians.
So am I.
I find them so fascinating, the way that they find funny, relatable moments in like these tiny little mundane things. But I can only imagine how exhausting it is to do that all the time and have to be constantly churning out, a new set list,
Yeah. So there's one guy, and I'm not going to be able to remember his name. He's British, and he talks about the silent letters in the English language. Mm-hmm. And he's hysterical. He's like, who put a K in there? And then he talks about he's going to have a silent letter day. Mm-hmm. And on silent letter day, we're all going to eat a buffet style, and we're only going to use knives, and we're going to eat salmon, and we're going to, and it's so funny. It is hysterical. I would have never thought of that, but I love that idea that you take something very nothing. It's silent letters. We have them in the English language. It's not funny, but it is funny if you somehow put it out on the paper that way, right?
Absolutely. You're not thinking about the fact that he sat with a dictionary page by page.
Page by page going, which of these words? Right. Absolutely. Who is your favorite character in Blooms?
Oh gosh. If I say the dog, don't know. Doggo was my favorite to write because he was easy and he was just there to be fun.
Right.
I'm really, really very fond of Bud, the
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
He was really charming to write and fun to write. And I felt like sometimes I was doing Daisy a disservice because she's the main character, but she's also the straight man in
Right.
this. You know, she's got the chaos going around her, but she's the one who has to react to it. So it's more fun to write the chaos.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the mother as well.
Oh, good.
And I think the reason that I enjoyed the mother was because there's so much more to her. Like when we first meet her, she just seems to be like a nosy, in your face, my way or the highway, and it's going to be my way kind of woman. And throughout it, I could see there was so much more to her, you know, that was her way of being in the world, but that underneath all of that, there was so much more. I won't give it away, but there's something that you'll see where there are some silk flowers. And when the explanation of that came up, it like my whole heart just contracted.
Oh, I love that.
So, and I think the reason that they caught me that way, that whole scene caught me that way is because, you know, here she is, this really difficult woman who is just like, you can understand why the daughter is running the other way, but her motivations are so pure.
Yeah.
And you could see it there. And it was just, I don't know. It was like, oh, see now. And I think her daughter saw it at that moment too, that maybe there was more to mom than she wanted to believe.
Yeah. And it really was, it was part of when I was going through editing later and trying to kind of make it all seem of one piece. I really wanted to, I had this idea that even when they're arguing or when the characters are maybe butting heads or miscommunicating, what I wanted them to be saying underneath is, I love you.
Right.
You know, so even if, you know, it's all done in love, and that's not a spoiler, I don't think. Like if people, I want people to come into this story feeling safe. Like it's a happy story, it's a happy ending. Everyone
makes it's a cozy. I mean, it's definitely there's cozy to it, and cozy is a happy ending. And so, I don't think we're giving anything away there, but I just thought it was really beautiful because she is not easily likable. No. If you just look at her actions.
Yeah. And I did, I have a couple of people who read early for me.
Yes.
And one of them came back and they said, oh, I love it. The mother is awful. Like they were like, oh, that's hilarious how awful she is. And I'm like, no, I don't want her to be awful. Like in a awful way. I want her to be funny awful.
Right. And she was. You definitely did a really good job with that. So I'm curious, Joanna, are you in any of these characters? Do you see yourself as any of them?
Oh gosh. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know if you can avoid it, but that was
not entirely.
That wasn't my intention. I try really hard to keep any one-to-one comparisons out of the books. I tell people, not to worry, I'm never gonna put anyone in my book. Like if you're gonna look for yourself in the book, look to the good, and I'm gonna make up all the bad.
Okay. I love that.
Did put in, I lived in Denver for 20 years, so it was fun to set this in Denver because I could very clearly, picture kind of where they lived and where they were driving. That was kind of fun.
Right. Absolutely. So that kind of brings me then to I always love to talk about research. Did you have to do much research for this book, or was it mostly just in your head?
No, I did a lot of research because I know nothing about flowers. I am not a good gardener. I cannot keep anything alive. So I did a ton of research. At first I was on websites. I was reading books about the flower industry. I got out books on flower arranging. I found a very dry book that was very useful to me. It was called The Profit-Minded Florist, and it was all about accounting systems. And it's funny because you do this research, but I'm not trying to write a book called How to Run a Flower Shop. It's just background. You just want to sprinkle in, like we were saying before with the joke and reading the dictionary, like you do a ton of research for one drop-in detail.
Yes.
But what I did do was I interviewed a couple of people. I reached out to local farm, flower farm here in Raleigh, outside of Raleigh, the Faraway Gardens, and asked if I could interview them. And so I went out and spent a day talking about how did you decide to run a business as a family. And then I went to Southern Pines and interviewed the owner of a local flower shop, Thistle and Moon, out there. And the owner she was delightful and gave me a bunch of like flower catalogs and things like that. So that was wonderful.
Yeah. And I think what is wonderful about that kind of research is, like you said, we're not trying to write a book that is everything you've ever needed to know about running a flower shop, but we're afraid to ask. That's not the book. But you want it to feel real.
Right. Yes.
And it can't feel real if you don't understand what it's like to run a flower shop. So you have all of these facts, and then you have to say, of all of these things, which 2 or 3 do I need to sprinkle in here to make this feel real?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you're dressing a set, you know, if this were on stage, what things would say this is a flower shop?
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. I never once had to suspend my belief.
Oh, good.
You know,
Good.
And that's something that when I'm reading, there have been times where you're reading and you stop and something jolts you completely out of the story, and that didn't happen. So you did a really good job of setting the scene and making it feel like this really would be happening.
Good. Well, it's handy too that Daisy doesn't necessarily want to be in the flower shop, so I could take her out of it a lot. Like anytime that I thought, okay, I don't, you know, we can leave now.
We can leave. Just jump right on out of there. Yeah, I thought it was I really enjoyed it. I'm curious about your writing process. Would you consider yourself a pantser? Do you consider yourself a plotter? Are you somewhere in between?
This book was pantsing completely. My first 2 books were pantsing. The first manuscript I ever wrote was through National Novel Writing Month, and I really liked sort of the adrenaline, the non-organized approach of just write for 30 days and see what happens. So I've been doing that, but I have been trying to get a little more organized because I tend to revise so many times, and I'd like to cut that down.
Right.
You know, I'm just finding, you know, 3 to 4 years between books is a long time. I'd like to shorten that up. So I am trying to organize and outline a little bit more. I've used the Save the Cat.
Save the Cat. I tried that one. Yeah.
That one's nice because it's like 9 points. It kind of gives you a real loose outline. But then I've also, I've been reading Story Genius by Lisa Kron, Cron, and that's been really helpful. So I've been going through the exercises of that, and I paused while this book was coming out, but I'm going to go back to that for my next project and do a little bit of research and kind of plotting out before I dive into writing over the summer.
That's really interesting. So I am very much a pantser, and I have tried several variations of plotting, and to date have yet to find one that will work for me. And whenever I try to plot in any manner, my left brain takes over and says, this is the way it's going to be. And my right brain, which is the creative piece that actually does the writing, refuses to participate and leaves the room. And I am left with my non-functional left brain who cannot write.
Yeah.
You know, my this is what needs to happen next brain is a terrible writer. And my right brain absolutely refuses to participate. It's like, so I have to kick me out of the room so that, you know, right brain can come in and do the writing. In fact, it was using the Save the Cat where I got so invested in, I don't know, the where am I in the book that I lost my character.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I am, before I was writing full time, I was for a while a professional organizer. So I'm very organized in stuff. Yes. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I've had kind of the warring factions of my brain going like, well, but you should be organized more. And my other brain is going, well, let's just, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I feel is in my daily life. I feel like there's 2 of me. You know, the me that you're talking to right now is list making Terry, who knows exactly what she's going to do when she gets off this podcast. I know where I'm going to be. And my whole day is lined up and I'm very organized, and writing me is not that.
Yeah.
writing me is kind of like fly around by the seat of your pants. Are you going to write today? I don't know if I have something to say. And it's very, very crazy. And it almost makes me wonder, like, wow, like, how did I ever discover that was in me? You know,
Yeah.
because I'm so organized. Like, when did that ever have a chance to pop out? So
I've had to put some like parameters around even the unorganized parts. I've tried to, like, my idea is I sort of give myself between 9 and noon to get the writing stuff done. And I don't put a lot of detail into it, but I kind of give myself like this chunk of time and, you know, a minimum word count. I usually give myself permission. I'm like, if you get through 500 words and you're not feeling it or you can't get any farther, you can quit.
Yeah.
But usually, you know, you can kind of keep going. So I do try to kind of organize it around that. I give myself some outs along the way to kind of keep myself on task, but it's not always organized.
But I think, you know, you said about the joy of that kind of just like, where is it going to go? There is something really exciting to be at a point in a book and you're not really sure, like, I don't really know where it's going to go next. And then the idea comes.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I could do this. And I love that feeling.
It is a good one. I think that's what we're all like, we're striving for each, you know, it's that scholastic book fair feeling. You're like,
yes, I know what I'm going to do. I really love it when I'm doing some research because I know that something needs to happen and I just don't know what it is. And I'll read a fact and it's like, oh my gosh, I can use that. And that is going to be the thing that propels me. And I don't know, that discovery is just phenomenal. I think that's the part that keeps me as a pantser.
Yeah. Oh no. Absolutely. I like the part where you're writing and something's not quite working. And then there's just this, I had a writing coach who like described it as like a 35-degree shift. It's not very much. It's just this much. And you're like, oh, you know, it's like turning a puzzle piece, you know, just one side. And you're like, oh, now it fits.
I'm curious if this has ever happened to you. I have written things before where I've put in a little scene and it doesn't seem like, I'm not even sure why I put that in there. And later, all of a sudden, that scene counts because now I know what I'm going to do with it. And it's like, I didn't know when I wrote it, or at least left brain me didn't know when I wrote it, but there it is. And now it's perfectly placed for this next thing that's going to happen. And you're like, oh, how did I do that?
I'm weird. I had that in this book. I realized as I was writing that Daisy had sort of been creating a family out of her work family, her work situation. And that didn't occur to me until later on, several drafts in, that was something I could use to strengthen kind of the whole story and tie the two parts of the book together. And it was the kind of that moment like, oh,
it's already there. It's even there. I don't
overbearing mother and this overbearing boss, the supportive friend at work and the supportive brother, you know, and you're like, oh,
look at what I've done.
Yes. And you feel like you're like, did I put that in there? Did they put that in there?
I know. Sometimes that's the way I feel. It's like, okay, so did I already know where I was going, but I don't know. It's very crazy. Yeah. It's this idea that I know, but I don't know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I've just made the decision that my left brain and right brain do not speak to one another. Yeah. And that the privacy wall between them is very high and very sturdy. And there's just not a lot of communication going on. And so I think my right brain all along knew what it was going to do with that piece, but it hadn't told the rest of me. So I'm just going along, you know,
They have like tin cans on a string and they're
absolutely. So what do you have? You kind of said that you have another project. Can you talk anything about that? Are you willing to tell us kind of what's coming up?
So it's actually going to be a sequel to Bloom.
Oh, fantastic.
So I don't know if you watch Marvel movies at all. At the very end of the book, I end it, and again, not a spoiler, but I had a line in here like they do at the end of the Marvel movies where they say, so and so will return in the next movie. And I said,
Yes.
and I was like, Daisy and Bud will return in Wedding Bell Blooms. So this is going to be a sequel. And it's actually, I'm going to repurpose the story that I originally harvested them out of. So I'm going back to this wedding idea, and Daisy is going to get roped into planning a wedding. And so that is actually part of why I went in and put the romance in the first book, so
Right.
that it would actually be part of this. It would be a jumping off point for the second book. So yeah, so I'm going to start working on
Wonderful.
that. I'm really excited. I've got some ideas around it. So
Fantastic. And any idea when you think that might like come into fruition?
Oh, well, I have to write it first. I have no idea. Probably a couple of years. I'm not fast, so probably a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay. Joanna, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about your writing or the book or whatever, what's the best way to do that?
So I am most active on Instagram under Joanna Monahan author. I also have a website, joannamonahan.com. It's JoannaMonahan.com. It's a lot of A's and O's and H's, sorry. But that's the best way to find me. I have a newsletter that goes out a couple of times a month, real short. I talk about writing and books. I talk about movies. I'm a big 80s gal. I'm a Gen Xer. So, expect some, talk about Pretty in Pink, that kind of thing. Maybe pictures of my cats.
And I'll have all of that in the show notes, guys.
Yes.
So definitely go to the show notes there. You'll be able to just click the links and head right on over to talk to Joanna. Run out, grab the book. Okay. So it is wonderful. Welcome to Blooms. You're going to love it. And once you do, make sure you review it. Goodreads, Amazon, BookBub, Barnes & Noble, wherever it is that you want to put out something about the book, because as authors, we really could use the reviews. It's difficult to get them. So, and Joanna, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. This has been wonderful.
This has been so much fun. This went so fast. This was great. What a great time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.